Help! My drawing doesn't seem to be improving. I put lots of effort into it, but I just don't seem to have progressed at all. If this is the case for you, it could really be that the problem is not so much the drawing that you're doing, but the ways in which you're thinking. Because in the end, what we do and how we do it flows from what we think, from the beliefs we have, from the understanding that we have. Let me quickly run through 7 ways I think we can have wrong ways of thinking that really impede our ability to improve our drawing. And the first mistaken way of thinking is that when I draw, I'm releasing my inner creativity. I'm letting my natural talent flow. No, I am learning a skill. And it's just like all skills we learn. It's through effort and practice, direction and correction. And more effort and practice and direction and correction. And repeat that again and again and again. Releasing my natural talent, that sounds like something I could do lying on the lounge. Learning a skill is hard work. It can be fun, it can be rewarding, but it is still hard work that requires effort. And if I'm thinking that somehow some sort of creative spirit's going to waft out of me and almost produce the artworks for me, then I'm not going to be prepared for that learning process. And if I'm not prepared for it, I'm not going to be able to engage with it effectively. The second mistake I think we have in our thinking is that we think when we sit down to draw that we're producing an artwork. That at the end of the drawing session, we'll have a lovely artwork, something we could put on exhibition, something we could sell, something we could frame, something we could give as a gift. And it's easy to understand this thinking because the word art connects with all of these things. And these are things that artists do. And our ability to engage with that world of exhibition and sales and framing may be part of our motivation for what we're doing in our drawing. And yet it's a very unhelpful focus to have when we sit down to draw. As we saw in the first point, it's important to understand in our thinking that learning to draw is a process. We're learning a skill, and that learning itself is a skill. How we learn anything is a process, and we're applying that process to learning to draw. And the focus that we have in our mind when we're drawing, whether we're producing an artwork or learning to draw, makes a huge difference, I believe, in what happens. If I think I'm producing an artwork, then there's a great focus on the final product. The important thing is that I get a great artwork for whatever purpose I hope to use it for. And that means it's very important that I don't mess it up, that I don't make a mistake. I don't want to do anything that's going to spoil that artwork. And if it looks like it's working out well, then there's great pressure in the second half not to spoil the good start that I've made. This way of thinking can also encourage us to push ourselves beyond our ability level at that point, because we want an impressive artwork. And in our mind, that might come from a difficult, complicated, challenging subject or composition or technique that in fact is way beyond our ability to do well at that point. And if I have problems with being overly perfectionistic, it certainly will not help them, because I will be more focused on trying to not draw wrong lines than experimenting and learning the possibilities of how to draw right lines, how to draw correct lines, how to draw effective lines. I'll be holding back what I put on paper and therefore not learning so that I don't ruin my artwork. But if in my mind I'm thinking I am learning a skill and that's a process, then the things I'm drawing are just that. They're part of that process. They're exercises. They're like doing piano practice every morning. They're like going to footy training once a week. I don't start at the end, but because I'm not producing artworks, I can experiment, explore, discover, and I can actually give full range to whatever creative ideas I have in me. Because with exercises, I've got nothing to spoil and I've got everything to learn. In fact, if I learn to embrace mistakes doing my drawing exercises, they are a great tool for focusing me in directions where I can improve, where I do need to put more effort, more thought, perhaps get some more instruction somehow. And if you've got a big pile of half-finished drawings that you finished up thinking you'd ruin them, or you were afraid you were going to ruin them if you kept going, then you've probably got the wrong way of thinking happening, that you're producing an artwork instead of learning to draw. The third unhelpful way of thinking is really directed at people who draw from photos. But to be honest, I think that's probably the most common way most people draw these days. And the unhelpful way of thinking is that my aim is to, as faithfully as possible, reproduce the photo. I'm wanting my drawing to look as much like the photo as I can. And that's the problem, trying to make my drawing look as much like the photo as I can, because that's not a helpful goal to have if I'm trying to improve my drawing skills. Photography is an art form. Photos are art objects. And a photo can do things that a drawing can't do, but a drawing can do things that photos can't do. So when my goal is simply to reproduce the drawing as accurately as I can, I'm actually severely limiting what my creativity might otherwise be able to do, be able to develop in. If my goal is simply to copy a photo, then I don't learn how to draw the effects of things. Instead, I slavishly try and draw detail, even when it's impossible to draw detail. I don't learn to draw depth, create a feeling of 3 dimensions in my scene, because a photo flattens everything out, pulls it all into the same plane in many ways. I don't learn composition. I don't learn how to juggle all the different elements that can be considered in composition, because I'm taking my photo and reproducing what's there. And I see this most commonly in pencil drawings of faces, of portraits. And I think often pencil is chosen over pen for these because it's easier to reproduce the tonal gradations from darker shades of grey to lighter shades of grey with graphite than it is with a pen or with ink. But because photos generally flatten faces and make them appear more two-dimensional than they do in life, when we seek to faithfully reproduce the photos, we're also faithfully reproducing the flaws, the drawbacks of the photo. And we don't learn the techniques that are available to produce a more three-dimensional effect using line as well as tone, of varying the marks that we make to give something form, to give it three-dimensionality, rather than just shape, rather than just 2 dimensions. If my thinking is that I'm trying to do as good a copy of the photo as possible, then the very best thing my drawing can be is a good copy of a photo. But in all honesty, it's more likely to be a not so good copy of the photo. Why would I want that to be my end result? I've already got the photo. I need to see every photo I draw from as a springboard for my creativity, as a starting point, as a place that I can manipulate the various elements in it, where I can put in line and effect and technique to overcome shortcomings in it, and where I can make any change I want that I think will actually improve it. It keeps my mind thinking all the time, how can I make this better? How can I improve the visual effect of what I'm seeing in the photo in my drawing? There's probably a good video on that just on its own. The fourth unhelpful way of thinking is, if I want to improve, if I don't feel like I'm improving, I need to practice more, I need to try harder. But I would say, if what I'm doing is not already leading to improvement, then there is no point continuing to put more time and effort into a process which already isn't working. That's only going to make it more frustrating. It will not suddenly start to produce results that it hasn't produced up till now, because for whatever reason, it indicates that the process that you're on at this point is not a good learning process, at least for you. And that's in the end the only process that really matters. Is it going to connect with my desires, my needs, my ability level? If what I'm doing hasn't been working for me, I need to shake it up. I need to do things differently. Draw different subjects. Use different media. Draw them a different size. Do them in a different time frame. If I've drawn from photos, go and draw on location and see if that doesn't stimulate my creativity in new and more productive ways. The fifth way I think our thinking can hold back our drawing improvement is to see each drawing session as a one-off event. It's a time where we sit down and draw, and we don't connect it to the other drawing sessions that we have had and the drawing sessions that we will have. And so I do my drawing, I look at it, I might think, presumably I think whether I'm happy or not happy with it, and then I throw it on the pile and move on to something else. Now, I might do this relatively frequently or infrequently, but my thinking has failed to take into account that this is part of a process, it's part of a journey, and that every part connects with parts before it and leads into parts ahead of it. And that if I want to maximize my drawing improvement in the shortest possible time, then I need to understand this process and to use it to my advantage. So when I've finished a drawing, I need to look at it and critique it. I need to look at it and say, has this achieved the things I was hoping it would achieve? Are there any obvious problems with it? Are there things that I can see didn't work out, are inaccurate in some way where I wanted them to be accurate? And if so, how can I change this in my next drawing? What can I do differently? And it might be there's a skill I need to focus on. It might be a different way of organizing the order in which I draw things. Or it simply may mean paying more attention at a certain point than I did in that drawing. But as well as reviewing the individual drawing, I need to save all of my drawings, or at least a good representative portion of them, so that I can look back over a period of 6 months, over a period of a year, and ask, how is what I'm doing now comparable with what I was doing 12 months ago? Can I see improvement? If I can, where? If I can't, where? These things will help me work out, firstly, how effective my drawing process, my learning process has been, but it can also give me direction for where I still need to focus. The more clearly I can think and understand what I'm wanting to do and then what I'm actually doing, the more effectively and efficiently I can work out what I'm going to do in my drawing. The sixth way our thinking can be very unhelpful and actually block our drawing improvement is when it leads us to think that drawing is a bigger deal than it really is, where we ironically think too highly of drawing as an art form. And this clearly isn't helped if we have a I'm producing an artwork mentality as well, that when we sit down, this great masterpiece is going to be created. This amazing process is going to unfold. If I think that way, I might only feel like I can sit down to art when I've had 3 good nights of sleep before. I've got at least a 3-hour time slot where I'll be uninterrupted, and I have a subject truly worthy of the artwork that's going to be produced. And if I've always drawn in a 3-hour or 4-hour drawing session, it may not have occurred to me that I can do a drawing in 15 minutes and learn many things, develop many skills, progress many techniques. In fact, I would say that there is a far greater, richer, deeper learning opportunity in 12 15-minute drawing sessions than in 1 3-hour drawing session. And particularly if those shorter sessions are spaced much more frequently. We want to make the thought of sitting down to draw as easy and as simple as possible, so that instead of thinking, oh, I need to have 3 days to get ready to think about starting to draw, I'm able to say, gosh, I've got 15 minutes, I'll just do a quick drawing. And maybe we won't have at that moment the time, the energy, the inspiration that we might have at another time. But in my experience, 80% of something is better than 0% of something. 60% of something is better than 0% of something. And that we're guaranteed to learn nothing at all and to not improve a bit with 0%. So seeing sitting down to draw as an easy, accessible worthwhile, practical thing to do is a far better way of thinking than having a far higher view way of thinking about what it is. And I suspect many of us suffer from this final unhelpful way of thinking. And that's the mistaken thinking that watching YouTube videos, watching many YouTube videos over and over again about drawing, even mine, or reading books or magazines about drawing, or reading reviews of art materials, or of going to art shops and just looking at all the art materials, of buying art materials and getting them home and poring over them and breathing in the smell and looking at the colours, that somehow that's the same as drawing, that somehow there's some sort of automatic improvement if we just do those things. Of course, every one of those things can be a helpful thing. But if in my thinking I haven't got the balance right, I can make the mistake of thinking that somehow just from having watched 6 hours of YouTube drawing videos in the week has been the same as if I'd actually done some drawing. Good teaching will guide us, will give us helpful direction, will encourage us, but it will only have any impact if we actually pick up our pen or our pencil or whatever materials we use to draw in whatever way we draw. My challenge is, do you watch more videos than you spend time actually drawing? And I think on that note, I have to say, well, that's it. And now it's time for you to go and do some drawing. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this helpful. We can often be impatient to be practical, but sometimes time is better spent thinking. Because in the end, what we do comes from how we think. So it's always good to challenge, what are my thoughts, what are my underlying assumptions about the act of drawing, the process of drawing, the goal of my drawing? Because without us intending it to happen at all, we can think in ways that are actually unhelpful to our drawing improvement. So I hope this has given some direction for some people to think in perhaps different ways to some aspects of drawing, in ways that will lead to greater drawing improvement. But look, whatever you draw, whenever you draw it, however you draw it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.